Thank you so much, Naja. It is really such an honor and a pleasure to be able to be here with OIC of South Florida and this incredibly diverse and energized group of community leaders and policymakers to really zero in and laser focus on how we can make sure that people can achieve what is everyone's minimal goal of climbing the ladder to the middle class. That is an expectation as Americans that we are all raised to believe and to understand is critical to ensuring that we have the kind of quality of life that we wish for ourselves and that we want to make sure that we pass on, and that is much more likely that we pass on to our children and grandchildren if we've attained it ourselves. And now, more than ever, we have to work to build up and support America's hardworking families. Under President Biden's leadership and the Democratic majority in Congress, we passed historic legislation last Friday called the Inflation Reduction Act that is specifically designed to ease the burden on our middle class. Just last week, when we passed the Inflation Reduction Act, and President Biden, by the way, signed it into law on Tuesday, we ensured that we could deliver kitchen table relief to Americans across this country. It cuts healthcare and drug costs and creates green and good-paying jobs to support local communities and helps save our planet for future generations. It does this by making corporations pay their fair share and yet still reduces the deficit. And as we all know, America must help its middle class without adding additional burdens. The Inflation Reduction Act ensures no one who makes less than $400,000 will pay 1 penny in new taxes. And it will slash energy costs and work to stop our warming planet from stealing the future of our next generation. And as Floridians, I know we all know that global warming and its impact and climate change and sea level rise is not the someday thing that other folks talk about. It's a right now thing for us because we are ground zero. We are literally ground zero, and if I asked for a show of hands of how many people who, in their own neighborhoods, had flooding on a sunny day, for no random reason, you would probably nearly all raise your hands because it's something that we experience and that is going to be increasingly problematic for us in the future. So making sure that we take on and tackle that challenge through the Inflation Reduction Act allowed us to take our biggest shot ever to tackle climate change because this legislation, which is now law, speeds up clean energy transitions, cuts climate pollution by 40% by 2030, which is, at least within our lifetime instead of thinking about it being, decades and decades down the road. And the legislation will make sure that millions of Floridians will be healthier and more financially secure by allowing Medicare to finally negotiate prescription drug prices, reducing the cost of prescription drugs, and capping annual out-of-pocket costs for those drugs as well. And that's, I think, an applause line. I think everybody struggles with the high cost of prescription drugs. And we also decrease insurance costs, health insurance costs, for 13 million Americans with the expansion of the Affordable Care Act's premium tax credit, and that will save the average family through an Affordable Care Act policy $800 each. This is game-changing relief for Americans. And this law is really the way that you strengthen the middle class. It's not just the way you strengthen the middle class, it's how you grow it. At the same time, in Congress, we've also been very busy in the House Appropriations Committee, on which I have the privilege of sitting, where we've been working on the government funding bill for the next fiscal year in FY23. Now, a budget is a reflection of our values. Our bills expand funding for affordable housing, education, and healthcare, all pillars to making sure that people can get to and remain in the middle class. And we also allocated a record $407 million to Everglades restoration for the protection of its vital biodiversity, along with the water supply that millions in Florida rely upon. Now, if you don't have access to clean water, whether you're a budding small business or a homeowner or someone who just wants to be able to live their life without that gut-wrenching worry, making sure that we can restore our river of grass and its historic sheetwater flow is really critical. I'm also proud that I was able to work with the Biden administration to secure an additional $1.1 billion in recent commitments to make sure that we can jumpstart the Everglades Restoration Plan and revitalize our environmental treasure. I was also able to include protections in these spending bills to protect our coastlines from offshore oil and gas leasing activities. Now in Florida, with tourism being the #1 driver of our economy, I think all of us probably shudder to think about the possibility of oil and gas rigs within view of Florida's pristine beaches. That would not exactly be the best or most attractive driver of people's interest in continuing to come to our state, to say nothing of the history of things like the Deepwater Horizon spill that sullied those beaches and that gave us a really clear example of how dangerous it would be if offshore oil drilling and gas leasing were allowed near our shores. So these appropriations bills truly reflect our shared values, the values of safeguarding our resources and supporting our middle-class families. Now, there's no greater expense for families than housing costs. Homeowners have been hurting in large part because of the COVID pandemic, especially in Florida, but help is here and it is available, but not enough people know that it's available. The American Rescue Plan, which we passed last year in the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic, put aside $676 million for Florida homeowners who are struggling financially. These funds help pay mortgages, taxes, utilities, internet, and any other costs homeowners face. Owning a home is more than just possessing a piece of property. It's the place where families realize generational dreams. Home is where we put down roots, make a lifetime of memories, and where we return to every day for comfort and security. We must never lose track of what's truly important to families. And having a safe, reliable, and secure place to live is really the basic starting point for anyone who wants to make sure that they can move forward. Because if you are worrying about whether you have a roof over your head, if you have an insecure housing situation, it's nearly impossible to maintain your middle-class status, never mind actually achieving it. So this vital homeowners assistance program is helping thousands of Floridians remain in their homes. Realizing the dream of owning a home is a major step on the ladder to the middle class, and we have to ensure that it's attainable. Another key component of attaining middle class status, and the panel discussed that briefly, is maintaining your health security. My parents always taught me if you don't have your health, you don't have anything. I learned that firsthand when I was diagnosed with breast cancer when I was just 41 years old. One day I was the picture of health. The next day I found a lump while I was doing a routine self-exam in the shower, and suddenly I was a cancer patient. So much of my work focuses on keeping us all healthy. The Inflation Reduction Act takes a major step in that direction, but more needs to be done. That's why I recently joined with my fellow Floridian Congresswoman Kathy Castor to urge that Congress close the Medicaid coverage gap to help ensure that the nearly 1 million Floridians who currently do not qualify for subsidies in the Affordable Care Act, but also make too much to be able to qualify for Medicaid and fall in that coverage gap, are able to get access to quality, affordable health care. It is absolutely essential. If you can't afford your basic health care, if you're sick and you can't afford to go to the doctor, then what happens is your health care issues exacerbate, and then everything else in your life fades into the background. I think we all know, anyone or even ourselves, when we've experienced a health care challenge, you are really not thinking about anything else other than overcoming that healthcare challenge. And so making sure that we at least give equitable, affordable access to everyone. It's a human right. Access to quality, affordable healthcare is a human right. It is not a privilege, and I don't understand why that continues to even be a debate. Thank you. Florida is one of only 12 states remaining that has yet to expand Medicaid and close that coverage gap. And I know I won't stop until everyone has access to the care that they need when they need it. As I mentioned, as a breast cancer survivor, I focus on healthcare issues specifically, and more explicitly, I made the fight against cancer a top priority in my own legislative agenda. I've passed legislation to help make sure that not only young women have the education and awareness tools that they need to keep themselves healthy. For the women in this room, forgive me for speaking to the estrogen rather than the testosterone for a moment, but I would urge all of the women in this room to pay attention to your breast health. I never miss a chance to urge women to do that. You need to know what's normal for you, so you know when something feels different. That is why I'm standing in front of you today, because just after my first mammogram, I found a lump, even though my mammogram was clean. And I was able to go right to the doctor because I had access to quality, affordable health care. And we need to make sure that whether you're a woman at higher risk, because African American women, for example, are less likely to get breast cancer, but more likely to die when they do get it because they're susceptible to a triple negative breast cancer, which can be deadly. But caught early when you're going to your clinical exams and paying attention to your breast health, doing self-exam and knowing what's normal for you, you give yourself a fighting chance. And that's what I try to make sure every single day, even using a middle class summit as an opportunity to help make sure that everybody's paying attention. The other thing I wanted to mention, thank you so much, is I recently succeeded in creating a new program to address screening barriers in underserved communities. Because guess what? I think it won't come as a surprise to anyone in this room that minority communities are less likely to have access to screening for illnesses, whether it's cancer or any other kind of illness. And so we funded and launched a program that is named after my dear friend, the late Congressman Alcee Hastings, who was an incredible mentor, who lost his battle to pancreatic cancer, and who was an incredible champion for the underserved. Good health is a prerequisite to stay in the middle class, and poor health is a massive barrier. Access to affordable quality health care must not be an obstacle that stands in anyone's way. Now, my goal is to make life better for as many people as I can, no matter our backgrounds. Certain core values will always unite us: family, equality, and opportunity for all. I don't think anyone could argue, you would think, on those three inherent values. And we all strive and we all dream to provide our sons, our daughters, our granddaughters, our grandsons a fulfilling life and the advantages that hopefully all of us have an opportunity to achieve. And then for our successors, the next generation, to surpass our achievements. That's a goal that every parent has. I work hard in Congress every single day to support these ideals and to ensure that everyone has the support and the resources that they need to succeed. And as a member of Congress, I strive to end each day knowing that I served my community in the best way possible. Working together, I know that we can help people climb the ladder to the middle class. Now, we know there's no elevators to the top. You have to take the stairs. And that path is not always going to be easy, but I will tell you, and I will end here by sharing my own personal ethos with you. And it is an ethos that I instill in the people that I work with side by side every single day, is that, you might not always be successful. I may not always win the day or prove everybody that I'm right, but I'll be darn sure that I'll never lose because I got outworked. And if you follow that mantra, I'll tell you, think about the people that you know. It's not that hard to outwork most people. Just saying. So work hard, focus, and let's make sure there are opportunities to lift all of us up. Our whole community will be for the better if we make sure that we raise that platform much higher than it is today and help launch people up those ladders of success. Thank you so much.